It's a good AGam in Kansas morning. Good morning. Let's take a look and see what's coming up today. First, Riley Schofield shares her expertise in choosing a horse for your child. Then Kristina Butts with the NCBA discusses the Dietary Guidelines for Americans and why basing it on scientific fact is so important to the Kansas beef industry. Then learn about the Fungal Genetic Stock Center, a research resource repository, and the high moisture corn harvest in Kansas. We'll end with Frank Harper, a cattle producer who built a gas trap feed bunk system. Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff Progress, powered by Kansas farmers. This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
I'm Riley Schofield. I work for KW Cattle Company, which is a registered Angus operation out of Fort Scott, Kansas. I think probably one of the biggest mistakes people make that are new to horses, and not necessarily everybody makes this mistake, but it's not a dog. You don't really want to get it as a puppy or a colt. You know, you don't want the child to grow up with the horse. It's not a cheap process with these colts. You know, we've had so many colts. Everybody always tells us it's like job security for a vet, you know, because up until they're 2, it's not necessarily that they're going to try to kill themselves, but they're into everything. And so, like this horse right here, laid underneath the barn, sliced up his legs. That's, you know, that's expensive. It's a healing process. They can really, you know, do permanent damage to themselves. And so probably one of my biggest pieces of advice I'd give to parents who are looking for horses for their kids are not necessarily just keep the kid in lessons or anything like that, but I would have a trainer or somebody there to help you, you know, if you are new to horses. That way both your child and the horse are in a good place with somebody that is pretty capable of helping them along. A lot of it, when I was growing up, for me, a lot of it was more like trial and error type stuff, and I wouldn't recommend that. I got hurt a lot. I was very fortunate though. I did find a pretty good trainer, and he really helped me and progressed my riding, and that's, I think, the key to it is you have to progress, you know, to your horse's level. And so generally a lot of these kid broke horses are really, really broke. They're really light and soft, and you can do almost everything on them. And so just getting those kids to like use that horse to its full potential, I think that's key, to have somebody there to help you and guide you with that. I would say not necessarily old is better, but I would say generally for the most part, I've seen 5 and 6 year olds that are really kid broke, but I would also say there's a lot of 10 and 12 year olds that are good. So not necessarily old is better, and I for sure wouldn't go young. 2 and 3 year olds, I have seen some that are just really, really well-minded and can handle a kid, but that is your decision as a parent to make. I would just recommend surrounding yourself with people that are there to help you, and trainers, or whether it's if you board your horse or whatever, you know, there's somebody there that can help you through the process and get your child to that point that the horse is capable of. That way he or she can really enjoy it for the full potential that it is. And then when it gets to that point, when you've almost capped out on that horse, then you can look at getting something that needs maybe a little bit more training, or is a little bit faster or a little bit farther along than the other horse.
Buying a car shouldn't be this hard. And at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego, it isn't. It's actually awesome. Whether you want a new or used car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. Even if you want to custom order a new car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. See Toby's team at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. We're awesome.
Now another gardening tip with Annette Jackson.
Fall is a great time to plant trees, shrubs, and perennials. Root development this fall means more growth with less watering next year. For faster root growth, always use Fertilome Root Stimulator. It is the only stimulator which contains IBA rooting hormone. Use Fertilome tree and shrub food after the plant has been planted for a month.
Save 25% now on Jackson's homegrown hardy perennials. Let Jackson's friendly staff help you select the best plants for your landscape.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com. As fourth-generation farmers themselves, Heinen Brothers Ag Service understands the risk and rewards of farming. So when it comes to quality aerial and ground application, fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia, call Heinen Brothers Ag today, 800-760-4964.
AGam in Kansas is brought to you in part by Sure Crop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
Kristina Butts here with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association based in Washington, D.C., and really excited to be in Kansas this week visiting with a lot of producers. So every 5 years, two agencies come together and create an advisory committee to look at the latest nutrition and health science that's available to see if we need to change what is known as the Dietary Guidelines for Americans. These two agencies include the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Health and Human Services. And NCBA began our involvement in the Dietary Guidelines process for the 2015 update back in 2012. So we've been very involved from the beginning of this entire conversation. The advisory committee met for about 18 months in a variety of public and private meetings, and throughout that public process we were able to engage. We've been concerned about some of the final decisions made of the advisory committee. March a year ago, the advisory committee started bringing topics that, in our opinion, are not related to nutrition and health from a scientific perspective into the conversation, and that was about sustainability. Now, sustainability is a topic as an industry that we have a great story to share and we want to talk about it. But when you start to try to look at it in the realm of nutrition and health and childhood obesity, trying to make that connection from an industry standpoint is really something that we had a challenge with. We shared that with USDA, we shared that with the Department of Health and Human Services as well, to say your advisory committee is really going beyond their scope. If we want to have a conversation about sustainability, let's do it. But when you look at the statute, so what Congress is asking the agencies to do every 5 years, it's not to bring in topics outside of nutrition and health. It's to focus on the science that we have at hand. So we've submitted comments, and NCBA has, the Kansas Livestock Association has as well, and many individual ranchers as well as those involved in nutrition and health from a public sector standpoint and private sector standpoint into this process. Where we stand right now is that the secretaries are reviewing the advisory committee's report, which became public back in September. And again, this report is just a recommendation. So the secretaries have a lot of leeway here to work with their team internally to evaluate the science and see what they're going to take from this advisory committee's report to base the 2015 dietary guidelines on. We expect the final dietary guidelines to come forward the end of December or early in January 2016. And the reason why NCBA is so engaged in this process, and we have been literally for years since the first version of the Dietary Guidelines for Americans in 1985, is because they really are the foundation for our country's nutrition policies. So when you start thinking about nutrition policy on school lunch and breakfast programs, military feeding programs, senior feeding programs, they all point back to the Dietary Guidelines for Americans. So we want to ensure that they are scientifically sound, they are strong. Another issue that NCBA raised occurred at the 7th and final meeting in December a year ago, and that was the advisory committee's decision to take lean meat out of what they consider a healthy dietary pattern for Americans. The challenge here is that when you look at the actual science of the 2010 dietary guidelines that included lean meat as part of a well-balanced diet and actually said eat more nutrient-dense foods and had lean meat considered as a nutrient-dense food, that science has not changed between the 2010 advisory committee's report, the final 2010 dietary guidelines, and what the 2015 advisory committee put together. So in essence, their qualitative messages are not supported by the science within the advisory committee's own report. So we're working to ensure that all the science was put forward through the public process on the comments that NCBA and many others submitted to the docket. When I say many others, to give you a comparison, the 2010 dietary guidelines had roughly 1,250 sets of comments where the public and the communities engaged in that conversation. For the 2015 Dietary Guidelines, there were more than 29,000 sets of comments. So a lot more engagement from a variety of groups. Some are the activist groups, some are the groups that work more for a plant-based diet, some are those of us in the industry really trying to ensure that the latest science is really the core and the foundation of the final 2015 Dietary Guidelines. So for those of you watching that did engage in the process from a grassroots standpoint, we want to say thank you. We're still involved in this process. Congress has taken a notion as well from an oversight perspective. NCBA fully supports their role in overseeing the agency's efforts, both USDA and HHS, for the duration of the 2015 Dietary Guidelines process. So stay tuned, because we'll probably have more of an update at the end of this year, early next year, when those final recommendations do come forward from USDA and the Department of Health and Human Services.
I'm a patient of the Kansas Regenerative Medicine in Manhattan. I had stem cell therapy in my hips and my left knee. My wife and I both are patients. We went down there the same day in November. Since then, my hips are feeling a lot better. I can work now most of the day if I want to. And before, if I worked in the morning, I was done in the afternoon, or if I worked in the afternoon, I was sure enough done for the rest of the day.
Hey folks, Dr. Dan here, and I'm inviting you to come to the McCain Auditorium on October 12th to be a part of the Henry C. Gardner Global Food Systems Lecture Series, and the featured speaker will be Greg Page. He's going to discuss climate change in agriculture. When you think of climate change and the impact that agriculture may have on it, everybody involved with agriculture needs to be there. I hope that you can attend. We'll see you on the Kansas State campus. Again, that's October 12th, McCain Auditorium, and I'll see you down the road.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or for more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
The Fungal Genetic Stock Center is a research resource repository, and we preserve and distribute strains of filamentous fungi and yeast that are used for research in biomedicine, in biofuel development, genetics in general. This collection was established in 1960 out of concern that the research resources that were used in the demonstration of the seminal one gene, one enzyme hypothesis wouldn't be available to future generations of researchers. And that's been a very foresighted activity. We're now using whole genome sequence characterization in collaboration with the Department of Energy to understand what genes are deficient in strains that were originally studied in the 1950s. And this is important because Neurospora, the main organism in the collection, is a model for plant biomass deconstruction by microbes, and with the ultimate goal of producing biofuel from plant biomass. We're a peer of the E. coli Stock Center at Yale University, the Bacillus Stock Center at The Ohio State University, and a diverse array of living research resource collections around the U.S. They're used to understand how we can treat fungal infections in humans and animals, and fungi are important in veterinary medicine. They're also very important for understanding how we can manage agricultural fungal infections. So we're in the Department of Plant Pathology, and many of the organisms in the collection are agricultural pests. Through the activity of the U.S. Culture Collection Network, many collections are now developing off-site backups in collaboration with the U.S. Department of Agriculture National Center for Genetic Resource Preservation in Fort Collins, Colorado. The USDA is stepping up at a time when many collections face loss. You know, when a researcher retires or when they move to another institution, sometimes the research resources are highly valuable, but the new institution doesn't have a home. But the government has already invested in them, and so we're providing a way to make those resources available to future generations of researchers.
Hey, it's Dr. Dan here, inviting you to Animal Science and Industries Family and Friends Reunion.
Whether you're an alumnus, a family member, or a friend like myself, I would encourage you to attend the Family and Friends Reunion on October 9th as a way to network, connect, or reconnect with friends of yours in your segment of the livestock industry.
K-State has many traditions. Agriculture and football are at the top of the list. So I'll see you in Manhattan, Kansas on October 9th for the Animal Science and Industries Family and Friends Reunion.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
To see this show and past episodes of AGam in Kansas, go online to agaminkansas.com. This segment brought to you by Heinen Brothers Ag, farmers helping farmers by offering quality aerial and ground application, fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia. Call today to protect your crop yield.
Hey, we're here at a 180-acre field in Saline County. We're cutting this field as wet corn, hauling it to a local feed yard. It was planted April 6th. It's a Pioneer 1151 and Pioneer 1498 variety, both. It's a hot day today and it's drying fast. We only put atrazine down ahead of time as a pre-emerge. Usually we use a product called Lumax. We were going the cheap route with the price of commodities, and it worked. Held the weeds off. And then we came back post-emerge and sprayed with Roundup. It's Roundup Ready corn. On about June 5th. And the corn was strip-tilled and fertilized partially last fall with nitrogen and chloride, 60 units of nitrogen, 15 of chloride. And then this July, we rolled a rolling coulter through the field and applied at least 40 more units of nitrogen for the corn, and it performed very well. It's yielding 150 to 180 on the yield monitor, and we went for more trucks because we're just starting up here. The moisture we were shooting for here was between 25 and 35%. We actually came very, very close to that target. And Ottawa County feeders north of here up by Minneapolis is taking lots of corn currently, so we're hoping to get the whole 180 acres into them.
Hi, my name is Perry Owens. I'm the manager here at Ottawa County Feedlot. We're located in Minneapolis, Kansas. Right now we're in the middle of our high moisture corn harvest. We got started last week, and it's in the heat of it right now. Quite a few guys coming in. We try to take high moisture corn at a 25 to 35% moisture. We do it a little different than most yards do. Most yards put it up grind it and put it in a pit and pack it. We are actually putting it in ag bags, which you'll see later, and storing it, and then we'll grind it out of the bag and stuff. One reason we're doing that is we feel like we get less shrink. And plus, I'd done it for regulation purposes, so I didn't have to dig lagoons. So it's a very good feed. I used to feed it out west. I was located at a yard out west for several years in Leota, Kansas. That's where I'm originally from. Its name was Canned Sun Beef. You're looking at a very excellent product to feed your cattle. We figure the high moisture corn brings to ourselves, it's a 5 to 6% feed advantage at least on that. Besides what the farmers get by harvesting it early, they'll gain what they call ghost bushels, and it seems to be holding up. It always held up with the old varieties, and it's holding up so far. Last year, the guy had dry corn that he picked that he'd done high moisture on the rest of the field, and he had 3 more bushels dry bushel yield increased by harvesting it wet over waiting for it to dry. The corn, if not that the corn's bad in the elevator, but if I can bypass the elevator and the brokers, it's always a little better for both of us. I try to pass some of that on to the farmer, and I get to keep part of it. Plus, it's nice to know we got a big supply of corn sitting out there, and I don't have to go try to find it and chase it down.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Tallgrass Commodities offers producers bulk commodities at a reasonable price with reliable service throughout the whole Midwest. To find out more about Tallgrass Commodities, visit tallgrass.us or call 785-494-8484.
This segment is brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Well, good morning. My name is Frank Harper. This morning we're broadcasting here north of El Dorado at the Gilmore Creek Ranch. This is operation, one of 3 ranches under the operations of Doyle Creek Land and Cattle Company. My wife and I were married in 1994, and this was a part of the ranch at that time. And so over the years I had the opportunity to spend quite a bit of time down here and learn and get to know the ranch a little bit. And then in 2009, I had the opportunity to lease this place and run this as my own operation. It was a great opportunity. When we started in, things were really going quite well, and then we hit the dry weather of late 2010 and early 2011. So a couple of the challenges we really saw early on was the deteriorating water quality in our ponds and the low level of those ponds. So we had to make some quick decisions, decide, well, how are we going to maintain our cow numbers through this? At that time, we didn't know how long the dry spell was going to last. So one of the solutions we considered, we have what we call the Gilmore Creek here, which is what the ranch is named after. A very, very good water supply, spring-fed water source. It never did run dry during the drought. But one challenge we have with that particular creek is that it's right next to, it runs directly into El Dorado Reservoir. And one thing we considered when we needed to get more water to our cattle and better quality water to our cattle, being able to use that water resource more intensely. And we decided not to do that just based on the fact that we wanted to be a good steward of not only the water quality, but also the land and the pastures that surrounded the creek. So what we decided to do was put in a more updated water facility through buried water lines, improved a couple wells, and formed a trap system where we could do a central feeding facility for a good number of livestock, improve the road structure there, and then also be able to handle more cattle instead of less during the drought. The first traps we put in were in the fall of 2011, and at that time we had the main goal in mind was to get the water source and the feeding facility. And we were at that time pretty much exclusively a cow-calf operation, so my goal at that time was to provide an infrastructure that we could feed a good number of cows and water those cows effectively at the same time. Since that time, we've found additional uses for that traps. We've currently been starting more cattle in these traps, with whether that's southeast cattle that go into our stalker program in the summertime, or through our AI program in those traps. It's allowed us to concentrate more cattle closer to our facilities, and in the future I think we'll continue to utilize the trap system as we learn more about it, how it functions. We've built additional traps since that time period. A lot of the things that we learned from our first experience with the traps, we've replicated that. Some of the things that we thought we could improve, we tried to do that as well. I think the thing to remember with a trap system, that every situation is different, the topography is different, the turf, the grass that you're going to use and be on is most likely going to be different. So most of our traps are native or brome grass, so we're learning as we go how we can utilize those effectively. But one thing we do try to recognize is with the trap system, we try to maximize the value from each day and not the number of days that we're in the traps, because if we use the traps too intensively, then we're going to get back to the situation with a dry lot environment, and that was our goal from the beginning, to not get into that situation, because for lots of different things in a cow-calf operation, calf health is very important. The ability to feed efficiently, all those things come from the traps, but we have to respect the fact that we have to take care of that vegetation that the traps are made up of.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff Progress, powered by Kansas farmers. Watch AGam in Kansas online at agaminkansas.com.